The millionaire couldn't believe his eyes when he saw the stepmother throwing hot food at the innocent black girl, who cried, "Daddy went to work, and his wife does this to me every day." The scalding soup hit her small hands as she screamed in agony. 8-year-old Maya had endured this torture for months, but today would be different. But no one imagined what would come next. The piercing scream echoed through the luxurious kitchen of the Henderson mansion as 8-year-old Maya Williams clutched her burning hands to her chest. Steam rose from the scalding vegetable soup that had just been deliberately poured over her delicate fingers by Patricia Henderson, her father's new wife of only 6 months. "Please, Mama Patricia, it's too hot." Maya's voice trembled with pain and fear, tears streaming down her beautiful dark cheeks. Her father had told her to call this woman Mama, but Patricia Henderson was nothing like the gentle mother Maya barely remembered losing 3 years ago. Patricia's cold blue eyes showed no remorse as she grabbed Maya's thin arm roughly. "Stop being such a dramatic little brat. If you weren't so clumsy, this wouldn't happen. Now clean up this mess before your father gets home." The 8-year-old girl looked around the spotless granite kitchen with its gleaming appliances and wondered how she could have caused any mess. Everything was pristine, except for the soup now cooling on the marble floor, where Patricia had deliberately spilled it after burning Maya's hands. Maya possessed something extraordinary that she'd never told anyone about, a gift that her late grandmother had whispered about in stories. She could see people's true hearts just by looking into their eyes. When she gazed at Patricia, all she saw was darkness, jealousy, and cruelty. But Maya had learned to keep this special ability secret after Patricia had called her weird and disturbed the one time she'd tried to explain it. The front door's electronic chime indicated someone had entered the house. Maya's heart leaped, thinking her father David had returned early from his business trip to Chicago. But the footsteps were different, lighter, more confident. "Hello? Anyone home?" called a deep, warm voice that Maya didn't recognize. Patricia, immediately transformed, her twisted expression melting into a sweet smile as she quickly pushed Maya toward the pantry. "Get in there and don't make a sound," she hissed under her breath. "If you embarrass me in front of Mr. Blackstone, you'll regret it." Alexander Blackstone, 26 years old and worth more than most small countries, stepped into the kitchen, looking for his business partner, David Henderson. His tailored Italian suit fit his athletic frame perfectly, and his kind brown eyes immediately scanned the room with the sharp intelligence that had made him a billionaire before his 25th birthday. "Mrs. Henderson, I was hoping to catch David before he left for Chicago, but I suppose I'm too late," Alexander said politely, though something felt off about the scene before him. "Oh, Mr. Blackstone, what a pleasant surprise," Patricia gushed, her voice sickeningly sweet. "David left this morning, but please come in. Can I offer you some coffee, perhaps some soup?" Alexander's keen eyes noticed the soup splattered on the floor and Patricia's slightly flustered appearance. But what caught his attention most was a small movement from behind the partially open pantry door. Through the crack, he glimpsed a child's frightened dark eyes watching him. Maya stared at Alexander through the narrow opening, and her special gift immediately activated. As their eyes met for just a moment, she saw something that made her heart soar with hope for the first time in months. This man's heart blazed with kindness, integrity, and genuine compassion. The golden light she saw around him was brighter than anyone she'd ever encountered, except for her beloved late grandmother. "Actually, Mrs. Henderson," Alexander said slowly, his business instincts telling him something was very wrong. I smell something burning. Are you sure everything is all right?" Patricia's fake smile faltered for just a moment before she recovered. "Oh, just a small kitchen accident. Nothing to worry about." But Alexander Blackstone hadn't become one of the youngest billionaires in America by ignoring his instincts. Something was definitely not right in the Henderson household, and he intended to find out what it was. The soft whimper that escaped from the pantry made his blood run cold. Alexander's sharp hearing caught the small sound from the pantry, and his protective instincts flared to life. Growing up in foster care had taught him to recognize the signs of a child in distress, and every alarm bell in his head was ringing. "Mrs. Henderson," he said firmly, his voice taking on the commanding tone that made CEOs worldwide listen when he spoke. "Is there a child in your pantry?" Patricia's face went white, then flushed red with anger and embarrassment. "Mr. Blackstone, I don't think this is any of your business. Perhaps you should—" "Maya?" Alexander called gently, ignoring Patricia completely. "Maya, is that you in there? Your father has told me so much about you." This was a lie. David Henderson barely mentioned his daughter during their business meetings, which Alexander now realized was a red flag he should have noticed earlier. But the small voice that answered him made his heart clench with protective fury. "Yes, sir," came the tiny, scared response from behind the door. "Can you come out here, sweetheart? I'd like to meet you properly." Maya pushed open the pantry door. Slowly, her dark eyes wide with a mixture of fear and hope. Alexander's breath caught when he saw her clearly for the first time. She was absolutely beautiful, with intelligent dark eyes, perfectly braided hair, and delicate features that reminded him of a princess from a fairy tale. But it was the pain in her expression and the way she cradled her obviously injured hands that made Alexander's jaw clench with barely controlled rage. "What happened to your hands, Maya?" he asked softly, kneeling down to her level despite his expensive suit. Maya glanced nervously at Patricia, who was shooting her warning looks. But when she looked back at Alexander, her special gift showed her that golden aura again, and she felt safe for the first time in months. "The soup was too hot," she whispered, holding up her reddened hands. "It was an accident." Alexander gently examined her hands without touching them, his experienced eye immediately recognizing that these were not accidental burns. The pattern was too deliberate, too cruel. His own hands had borne similar marks years ago. Courtesy of his last foster father before he'd aged out of the system. "Maya," he said quietly, "accidents don't usually happen the same way multiple times. Can you tell me the truth about what happened?" Patricia stepped forward aggressively. "Mr. Blackstone, I really must insist that you leave. This is a private family matter, and this child has been deliberately burned," Alexander said, standing to his full height and fixing Patricia with a stare that had made billionaire investors back down. "That's not a family matter. That's a crime." Maya watched in amazement as this powerful man stood up for her. In her 8 years of life, no adult had ever protected her like this. Her father loved her, she knew, but he was always working, always traveling, always trusting Patricia to care for her properly. "You're wrong," Patricia snapped, her mask finally slipping completely. "That little brat is clumsy and dramatic. She probably burned herself just to get attention." "Is that what happened, Maya?" Alexander asked, never taking his eyes off the child. "Did you burn yourself?" Maya looked up at him with those impossibly wise eyes, and Alexander felt something shift in his chest. This wasn't just about rescuing a child from abuse, though that was certainly his immediate priority. Something about this little girl touched a part of his heart he'd kept locked away since his own traumatic childhood. "No, sir," Maya said quietly but clearly. "Mama Patricia poured the hot soup on my hands because I asked for something cooler to eat. She said I was being ungrateful for the nice food." The silence that followed was deafening. Alexander felt a rage building inside him that he hadn't experienced since his own foster care days. But he also felt something else, a fierce protectiveness that went beyond mere moral obligation. "Patricia Henderson," he said in a voice that could have frozen hell itself, "you're going to step away from this child right now, and then you're going to explain to me exactly what's been happening in this house." Patricia's face contorted with fury and desperation. "You can't tell me what to do in my own home. David will never believe you over me. That little girl is a liar and a troublemaker." But Maya was looking at Alexander with something approaching worship in her dark eyes. Her special gift was showing her not just his good heart, but something more, a connection, a similarity, a shared understanding of pain that made her feel less alone than she had since her mother died. "Maya," Alexander said gently, "would you like to call your father?" "He's in Chicago," Maya whispered. "He won't be back for 3 days." Alexander's smile was sharp and dangerous as he pulled out his phone. "Oh, he'll be back much sooner than that. I guarantee it." What Patricia Henderson didn't know was that Alexander Blackstone owned the company that David Henderson worked for, and when Alexander Blackstone demanded someone's immediate presence, they came running. But what Alexander didn't know yet was that his decision to protect this special little girl would change both their lives in ways neither could imagine. Within 2 hours, David Henderson was on Alexander's private jet racing. Back from Chicago, having received a phone call that turned his blood to ice. Alexander had been characteristically direct. "Your wife is abusing your daughter, and if you're not back in Chicago within 4 hours, I'm calling Child Protective Services myself." During those 2 hours, Alexander had taken Maya to the emergency room, where Dr. Sarah Chen confirmed what he already knew. The burns on Maya's hands were deliberate and showed a pattern consistent with ongoing abuse. Maya had sat quietly during the examination, but she never let go of Alexander's hand, finding comfort in the steady golden glow she saw around him. "Mr. Blackstone," Dr. Chen said privately while Maya was getting her hands properly bandaged, "this child shows signs of prolonged emotional and physical abuse. The burns are just the most recent incident. Are you family?" "No," Alexander said, surprising himself with how much he wished he could say yes. "I'm a business associate of her father's, but I'm going to make sure she's protected." When they returned to the Henderson mansion, Patricia was packing frantically, clearly hoping to leave before David arrived. She stopped short when she saw Alexander and Maya enter together, the little girl's hands now properly bandaged, and her eyes showing a spark of life that hadn't been there before. "You have no right," Patricia shrieked. "No right to interfere in our family." "You lost the right to call yourself family the moment you hurt this child," Alexander replied coldly. Maya tugged on his jacket sleeve, and he knelt down to her level. "Mr. Alexander," she whispered, "can I tell you something special?" "Of course, sweetheart." Maya looked around to make sure Patricia couldn't hear, then leaned close to his ear. "I can see good people just by looking at them. My grandmama could do it too, and you," she pulled back to look directly into his eyes, "you have the most beautiful light I've ever seen. You're going to be important in my life. I can feel it." Alexander felt his breath catch. This extraordinary child seemed to see straight into his soul, and what she saw there apparently didn't frighten her. For a man who'd spent his life building walls around his heart, Maya's innocent trust was both terrifying and deeply moving. "Maya," he said softly, "would you like me to stay until your father gets home?" "Yes, please. I feel safe when you're here." The sound of a car door slamming announced David Henderson's arrival. Maya immediately tensed, not because she feared her father, but because she dreaded the confrontation that was coming. David burst through the front door, his usually perfect appearance disheveled from his rushed journey. "Maya, baby girl, are you okay?" David's genuine panic and concern were evident as he rushed to his daughter, carefully examining her bandaged hands. "Oh God, what happened?" "Patricia said there was an accident, but Alexander said—" "Daddy," Maya said quietly. "It wasn't an accident." David's face went through a series of emotions: confusion, disbelief, dawning horror, and finally a rage that Alexander recognized as matching his own. David Henderson might be a workaholic who sometimes neglected his daughter, but he genuinely loved her. "Patricia," David's voice was deadly quiet, "what did you do to my daughter?" Patricia had been preparing lies and excuses, but faced with her husband's fury and Alexander's unwavering presence, she crumbled. "She's ungrateful. Spoiled. I've been trying to teach her discipline and respect, but she's impossible to deal with. You burned my 8-year-old daughter with hot soup because she asked for cooler food." David's voice rose with each word. "She needs to learn." "Get out!" David roared. "Get out of my house right now. Pack your things and get out." As Patricia fled upstairs to gather her belongings, David sank into a chair and pulled Maya onto his lap, careful of her injured hands. "Baby girl, I'm so sorry. I had no idea. Why didn't you tell me?" Maya looked up at her father with those wise, sad eyes. "She said you wouldn't believe me. She said you loved her more than me now." David's heart shattered. "Maya, sweetheart, nobody in this world will ever be more important to me than you. Nobody. I love you more than my own life." Alexander watched this reunion with mixed emotions. He was relieved that David was clearly a loving father who had been deceived, but he also felt an unexpected reluctance to step back from his protective role with Maya. In just a few hours, this special little girl had touched something deep in his heart that he hadn't even known existed. "Mr. Alexander," Maya said, turning toward him while still in her father's arms. "Will you come visit me? I don't want to say goodbye." Alexander felt his carefully constructed emotional walls crumble a little more. "If your father doesn't mind, I'd like that very much." David looked at Alexander with genuine gratitude. "You saved my daughter today. You'll always be welcome in our home." As Patricia's car disappeared down the driveway, carrying her out of there, lives forever, Maya looked at Alexander with those extraordinary eyes that seemed to see straight into the future. "Mr. Alexander," she said softly, "my special gift is telling me that you're going to be the most important person in my whole life, even more important than you know right now." Alexander felt a chill run down his spine, not of fear, but of destiny. Looking into this remarkable child's eyes, he had the strangest feeling that she was absolutely right, but none of them could have imagined the incredible truth that would soon be revealed about Maya's true identity, a truth that would change everything they thought they knew about family, fate, and the mysterious ways that love finds us when we need it most. 3 weeks had passed since Patricia's departure, and the Henderson household had transformed completely. Maya's laughter now echoed through the halls that had once been filled with fear, and David had restructured his entire work schedule to spend more time with his daughter. But it was Alexander's daily visits that had become the highlight of Maya's days. Every afternoon at 4 o'clock, Maya would press her nose against the living room window, watching for Alexander's sleek black Tesla to pull into their driveway. Today was no different, except that Maya had something very important to tell him, something that her special gift had been showing her in dreams for the past week. "Daddy," Maya said as David helped her with her homework at the kitchen table, "when Mr. Alexander comes today, I need to tell him about my dreams." David looked up from the math problems they were working on. Since Patricia's abuse had been revealed, Maya had been much more open about her special gift, and David had learned to take her insights seriously. "What kind of dreams, baby girl?" "They're about Mr. Alexander when he was little, like me, but they're sad dreams, Daddy. He was hurt too, but worse than me. And there's something else." Maya's dark eyes grew distant, as if she were seeing something far away. "There's a lady in the dreams who looks just like me, but older. She's crying and saying she's sorry over and over." David felt a chill run down his spine. Maya's gift had proven to be remarkably accurate in the past, especially when it came to reading people's hearts and histories. "Do you know who the lady is?" "Not yet, but I think Mr. Alexander knows her. I think that's why his heart hurts so much, even though he tries to hide it." The sound of Alexander's car in the driveway made Maya leap up from her chair and run to the door, her healed hands no longer bearing any trace of Patricia's cruelty. David followed, watching with amazement as his reserved daughter transformed into a completely different child around Alexander. "Mr. Alexander." Maya threw herself into his arms as he walked through the door, and Alexander caught her easily, spinning her around in a circle that made her giggle with pure joy. "Hello, little princess," Alexander said, using the nickname that had developed naturally between them. "How was school today?" "It was good, but I have something important to tell you," Maya said seriously, taking his hand and leading him to the living room couch. "So I've been having dreams about you." Alexander felt his smile falter slightly. Maya's perceptiveness about people sometimes unnerved him, though he'd grown to trust her insights completely. "What kind of dreams?" Maya climbed onto the couch beside him, her small hand still holding his much larger one. "Dreams about when you were 8 years old, like me. You were in a house with people who weren't nice to you, a man with angry eyes and a woman who pretended to be sweet but wasn't." Alexander's blood ran cold. Maya had just described his last foster home with frightening accuracy, the home where he'd endured 2 years of systematic abuse before aging out of the system at 18. He'd never told anyone the specific details of that experience. "Maya," he said carefully, "how could you possibly know about that? My special gift doesn't just show me people's hearts now, Mr. Alexander. Sometimes it shows me their past hurts too, and there's more." Maya's voice dropped to a whisper. "There's a lady in your memories who looks like me. She has dark skin and kind eyes, and she's very sorry about something. She says she never meant to leave you. Alexander felt the world tilt around him. Maya couldn't possibly know about his birth mother. He'd never spoken of her to anyone, had barely allowed himself to think about her for years. But Maya's description was perfect, down to the kind eyes that he remembered from his earliest childhood. "Maya," David said softly, recognizing the emotional storm brewing in Alexander's expression, "maybe we should—" "No," Alexander said quietly, his voice thick with emotion. "Maya, what else do you see about this woman?" Maya closed her eyes, her special gift allowing her to delve deeper into the visions that had been haunting her dreams. "She was very young when you were born. 17, I think. She loved you so much, but she was scared and alone. Someone told her she couldn't take care of you properly, that you'd be better off with other people. She believed them, but she regretted it every day after." Tears were streaming down Alexander's face now, though he wasn't fully aware of them. "What happened to her, Maya? In your dreams, what happened to her?" Maya opened her eyes, and they were filled with a sadness that seemed too deep for an 8-year-old child. "She spent her whole life looking for you, Mr. Alexander. She had another baby later when she was older and married, a little girl, but she never stopped missing you, never stopped loving you." Alexander's hands were shaking now. "Maya, is this woman, is she still alive?" "I think so," Maya whispered. "And Mr. Alexander, I think the little girl she had later. I think that might be why I can see all this. I think there's a reason we found each other." The implication hit both Alexander and David like a lightning bolt. David looked at his daughter with new eyes, remembering her mother Sarah, who had died 3 years ago and taken so many secrets with her to the grave. "Maya," David said slowly, "what was your mother's name when she was young, before she married me?" "Sarah Williams," Maya replied. "But Daddy, she used to have a different last name when she was a teenager, didn't she?" David's face went white. "Yes, baby girl. Before I met her, her name was Sarah Blackstone." The silence that followed was deafening. Alexander stared at Maya, with dawning comprehension, seeing for the first time the subtle similarities in their features that had been hiding in plain sight. The shape of their eyes, the curve of their smiles, the way they both tilted their heads when they were thinking deeply. "Maya," Alexander whispered, "what was your mother's maiden name?" "Her very first name before she was married." "Sarah Blackstone," Maya said simply. "Daddy, does that mean what I think it means?" Alexander felt his world completely reshape itself as he looked at this remarkable little girl who had touched his heart from the moment they met. The connection he'd felt, the protective instincts, the way she seemed to understand him so completely. It all made perfect sense now. "Maya," he said through his tears, "I think you're my sister. My little sister." The Baba revelation that Maya was his half-sister sent shockwaves through Alexander's carefully ordered world. As the three of them sat in stunned silence, Maya's special gift was showing her flashes of memory and emotion that confirmed what their hearts already knew to be true. "Mr. Alexander," Maya said softly. "Can I call you Alexander now? Or maybe something else?" "What would you like to call me, little sister?" Alexander asked, the words feeling both foreign and perfectly natural on his tongue. Maya's face lit up with a joy that seemed to radiate from her very soul. "Can I call you Alex, like family? I would love that, more than anything in the world." David watched this exchange with mixed emotions. He was thrilled that Maya had found her biological family, but he was also terrified of losing the daughter who meant everything to him. "Alexander," he said carefully, "what does this mean for Maya?" "For us?" Alexander looked at David with new respect and gratitude. "David, you've been an incredible father to Maya. You saved her from Patricia, you love her unconditionally, and you've given her a wonderful life. Nothing about that changes. If anything, this just means she has more people who love her." But even as he said the words, Alexander was struggling with his own emotions. For years he'd convinced himself that he didn't need family, that his wealth and success were enough. But holding Maya's small hand and seeing the love in her eyes, he realized how empty his life had been. "Alex," Maya said, using his new nickname. For the first time, I need to tell you something else that my gift is showing me about our mama. Alexander tensed. What about her? She's sick, Maya said quietly. Really sick. And she doesn't have very long left. But Alex, she lives here. In the city. She's been here the whole time, hoping you'd find her someday. Alexander felt his heart stop. Maya, are you certain about this? My gift doesn't lie, Alex. And I can see her address in my mind. She lives in a small apartment downtown, and she has pictures of you everywhere. Baby pictures that she somehow kept all these years. David stood up slowly. I think I need to call Dr. Chen. Maya, honey, this is a lot of information coming very fast through your gift. Maybe we should... Daddy, I know it sounds crazy, but everything I'm seeing is true. Alex knows I'm right, don't you, Alex? Alexander looked into Maya's eyes and saw the absolute certainty there. His little sister's gift had been accurate about everything else. Why would this be different? Maya, do you know what kind of sickness she has? Something with her heart, Maya said sadly. It's been broken for so long that it's forgetting how to work properly. The doctors say she only has a few months left, maybe less. Alexander made a decision that would have seemed impossible just hours earlier. Maya, would you like to meet her? Would you like to meet our mother? Maya's eyes filled with tears, but they were tears of joy mixed with sorrow. Yes, Alex, but I'm scared too. What if she doesn't like me? What if she's mad that I'm the daughter she got to keep, and you're the son she had to give away? Alexander pulled Maya into his arms, marveling at how naturally the protective big brother role came to him. Maya, our mother could never not love you. You're the most special little girl in the world. But what about you, Alex? Are you scared? Alexander considered lying, trying to be strong for his little sister. But Maya's gift would see right through any deception, and she deserved honesty. I'm terrified, little sister. I've spent 26 years wondering about her, being angry with her, missing her. I don't know what I'll say or how I'll feel. I'll be there with you, Maya said simply. We'll meet her together. That way, none of us will be alone. David cleared his throat. And I'll be there too if you want me to be. Maya is my daughter, which I guess makes you family now too, Alexander. Alexander felt a warmth spread through his chest that had nothing to do with his billions in the bank, and everything to do with the family he'd never expected to find. I would be honored to have you there, David. Maya climbed down from the couch and walked to the window, her small figure silhouetted against the afternoon sun. When she turned back to them, her expression held a wisdom that seemed far beyond her 8 years. Alex, I need to tell you one more thing that my gift is showing me. It's about tomorrow. What about tomorrow, sweetheart? Tomorrow is the day we're supposed to meet her. If we wait any longer. Maya's voice trailed off, but the implication was clear. Alexander felt a sense of urgency that had nothing to do with business deals or financial deadlines. This was about family, about love, about second chances that might not come again. Then, tomorrow it is, he said firmly. Maya, can you show me where she lives? Maya nodded and ran to get paper and crayons. As she began to draw a surprisingly detailed map of downtown streets, Alexander marveled at his little sister's extraordinary gift. But what amazed him most was how she'd appeared in his life, exactly when he needed her, showing him that the family he'd always longed for had been within reach all along. Alex, Maya said as she colored in the final street name, are you ready to go home? To really go home? Alexander looked at this remarkable little girl who had changed his entire world in just 3 weeks. With you as my guide, little sister, I'm ready for anything. But what none of them knew was that their reunion with Sarah Blackstone would reveal one final secret that would complete their family in the most unexpected way possible. The next morning dawned grey and overcast, as if the sky itself understood the emotional weight of the day ahead. Alexander had barely slept, alternating between excitement and terror at the prospect of seeing his birth mother for the first time in over 2 decades. Maya, however, seemed calm and purposeful, as if her special gift had prepared her for this moment. Alex, Maya said as they drove through downtown traffic in Alexander's Tesla. She's going to cry when she sees you. Happy tears, but also sad tears for all the time you lost together. David, who had insisted on driving while Alexander sat in the back with Maya, glanced in the rearview mirror. "Are you sure you're ready for this, Alexander?" "No," Alexander admitted. "But Maya's right. If we don't do this today, we might not get another chance." They pulled up in front of a modest apartment building that stood in stark contrast to the luxury Alexander was accustomed to. As they climbed the stairs to apartment 4B, Maya held tightly to Alexander's hand, her small fingers providing strength he didn't know he needed. Alexander raised his hand to knock, then hesitated. Maya looked up at him with those wise, loving eyes. "Alex, she's been waiting for this moment for 26 years. She's ready." The door opened before Alexander could knock, revealing a woman in her early 40s who looked exactly like an older version of Maya. Sarah Blackstone Williams stood frozen in the doorway, her dark eyes moving from Alexander's face to Maya's and back again, as if she couldn't believe what she was seeing. "Alex?" she whispered, her voice breaking on his name. "My God, you look just like your father did at that age." "Hello, Mama," Alexander said, the word feeling both foreign and completely natural. "I'd like you to meet your daughter, Maya." Sarah's legs gave out, and she would have fallen if Alexander hadn't quickly caught her in his arms. Through her tears, she looked at Maya with wonder and joy. "You're my granddaughter's little sister, aren't you? My David's daughter." "I'm your daughter too now, Grandmama Sarah," Maya said softly, stepping forward to take Sarah's hand. "My gift showed me that you've been missing us both." Sarah looked between Alexander and Maya with amazement. "You have the gift too, baby girl. Just like your mama had, and like I had when I was young?" Maya nodded. "It's how I found Alex. It's how I knew we were supposed to be a family." They moved inside the small apartment, which Alexander immediately noticed was filled with pictures, photos of him from newspapers and magazines, baby pictures he didn't even know existed, and prominently displayed photos of Maya and David from their wedding and Maya's early childhood. "So you kept track of us," Alexander said, his voice thick with emotion. "Every day," Sarah admitted. "I hired private investigators to make sure you were okay when I learned about the abuse you suffered in foster care." She broke down completely. "I tried to get you back so many times, Alex, but by then I was just an unwed teenage mother with no money and no legal rights. The system wouldn't listen to me." Alexander sat beside his mother on the worn couch, with Maya curled up between them. "Why didn't you try to contact me directly when I became successful? You had to know I could help you." Sarah's smile was heartbreaking. "Because I was afraid you'd hate me. I was afraid you'd tell me I didn't deserve to be in your life after abandoning you. I convinced myself it was better to love you from a distance than to risk losing you completely." "Mama," Alexander said, taking her hand, "I could never hate you. I've spent my whole life wanting to find you, wanting to understand why you gave me up. Now I know you were just a scared kid trying to do what you thought was best." Maya's special gift was showing her the deep healing happening between her brother and their mother, but it was also showing her something else, something that made her heart race with joy. "Grandmama Sarah," Maya said softly, "can I tell you a secret that my gift is showing me?" "Of course, sweet baby." Maya looked up at both adults with eyes that sparkled with joy. "The doctors are wrong about your heart. You're not going to die, not for a very long time. Your heart was broken from missing Alex, but now that we're all together, it's going to get strong again. Strong enough for many more years with your family?" Sarah looked at Maya in wonder. "Baby girl, the doctor said I only have months left. The cardiomyopathy is too advanced. The doctors don't know about the power of love, Grandmama, but my gift does. And it's showing me that you're going to be around to see me graduate high school, maybe even college." Alexander felt tears streaming down his face as he looked at his mother and sister, his family. For years he'd built an empire but lived in emotional isolation. Now in this small apartment with these two extraordinary women, he felt richer than all his billions had ever made him feel. "Mama," he said softly, "I have something to ask you." "Anything, my son. I want you to come live with me. Both of you and Maya and David. I have a house with more rooms than I know what to do with, and I can get you the best cardiac care in the world. We've already lost too much time together. I don't want to waste another day." Sarah looked at Maya, who was nodding enthusiastically. "What do you think, baby girl? Would you like to live with your big brother?" "I think," Maya said with the wisdom that consistently amazed the adults around her, "that God put us all together exactly when we needed each other most. Alex needed to learn how to love, you needed to heal your broken heart, and I needed to know I belonged somewhere special." Alexander pulled both women into his arms, marveling at how his life had been completely transformed by a brave little girl with an extraordinary gift. 3 weeks ago, he'd been a lonely billionaire. Today, he was a son, a brother, and part of a family that felt more valuable than any fortune he'd ever accumulated. "Maya," he said softly, "you were right that first day. You are the most important person in my whole life. You gave me back my family." Maya smiled up at him with those incredible eyes that saw straight into people's hearts. "That's what families do, Alex. We find each other when we need each other most." As the three of them sat together in that small apartment, watching the sun break through the clouds outside, Alexander realized that Maya's greatest gift wasn't her ability to see people's hearts. It was her ability to heal them. She had brought together a broken family and made them whole again, proving that love really could overcome any obstacle. 6 months later, Sarah's heart condition had indeed stabilized significantly, just as Maya had sensed it would. The stress-related component of her cardiomyopathy had improved remarkably with the joy of reuniting with her son and the peace of having her family complete. While she still required medical care, her doctors were amazed at her progress and had revised their prognosis to years rather than months. She was living in Alexander's mansion alongside Maya and David, and the house that had once been cold and empty now rang with laughter and love. Alexander had discovered that being a big brother and a son brought him more joy than any business deal ever could. And Maya, she continued to use her special gift to help people, but her greatest achievement would always be the day she showed a lonely billionaire that the family he'd always dreamed of had been waiting for him all along, in the form of a brave little girl who could see the goodness in his heart even when he couldn't see it himself. Sometimes the most extraordinary gifts come in the smallest packages, and sometimes the family we're meant to have finds us in the most unexpected ways. The end